There comes a moment in every woman's life when she realizes something no one ever warned her about, a truth that shifts the way she sees men forever. It's that moment when she discovers that age isn't just a number. It's a language older men speak fluently, with confidence, patience, and a depth that younger men rarely understand. And if you've ever wondered why younger women find themselves drawn, almost magnetically, to older men, stay right here. Because what I'm about to reveal will open your eyes in a way you didn't expect. These reasons go beyond attraction. They touch the heart, the soul, and the quiet emotions women rarely admit out loud. Before we dive in, comment your location, tell me where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more powerful insights. There's something profoundly magnetic about a man who has mastered himself emotionally, mentally, and spiritually. Younger women don't always articulate it, and many don't even fully understand it themselves, but they feel it. They feel the difference the moment they're in the presence of an older man who carries himself with a certain calmness, a calmness that doesn't need validation, doesn't chase attention, and doesn't crumble under pressure. Emotional stability, in the deeper sense, is not just about being calm or chill. It's about a man whose sense of self is no longer shaped by insecurity or impulse, and younger women pick up on that energy instantly. Older men don't rush to prove anything because they've already lived through the phase where ego was louder than wisdom. They've seen enough, learned enough, and healed enough to understand that emotional storms are temporary, but emotional intelligence is permanent. And this is where the attraction begins. Younger women aren't searching for perfection. They're searching for a sense of safety, not only physically, but emotionally. When a man has emotional stability, he becomes a grounding force. He doesn't escalate conflict. He dissolves it. He doesn't become defenses when challenged. He listens, processes, and responds with intention. Younger even often describe this experience as to peace. They know how to put it into words. Peace is a currency in relationships, and older men tend to possess it in abundance. They've had the arguments that went nowhere, the relationships that taught them hard lessons, and the life experiences that recalibrated their priorities. They no longer argue for dominance. They communicate for clarity. They no longer fear vulnerability. They understand it as a strength rather than a weakness. And younger women find this level of emotional maturity both comforting and alluring. Another layer to this is confidence, real confidence, not the loud performative kind that tries to impress the world. This is the kind that comes from knowing who you are. Younger men often compete with other men. Older men compete only with yesterday's version of themselves. That internal focus, that quiet certainty, is deeply attractive. It creates an emotional environment where a woman feels she can simply be herself without pressure, without judgment, and without the fear of emotional instability erupting in unexpected moments. When an older man walks into a room, his presence often says more than his words ever could. It's in the controlled tone of his voice, the measured responses, the patience in his communication, and the calm acceptance of things he cannot control. Younger women interpret this as strength, not the physical type, but the emotional and psychological kind that becomes increasingly rare in the modern world. There's also something to be said about emotional predictability. Younger women may enjoy excitement, spontaneity, and adventure, but what they truly value in relationships is consistency. And consistency is a trait older men have refined through experience. They know how to apologize without defensiveness, how to express their needs without aggression, and how to handle disappointment without retreating into silence or anger. Younger women feel seen and understood in ways they haven't experienced with men their own age. This emotional stability also gives older men the capacity to be better communicators. They know when to step back, when to lean in, and when to simply let things unfold. They've learned that communication isn't about winning a point. It's about strengthening the relationship, and that emotional intelligence creates a sense of connection that younger women crave but rarely find elsewhere. Psychologically, younger women associate older men with wisdom, with a sense of guidance, and with emotional leadership. This doesn't mean controlling the relationship. It means being a steady presence, someone who doesn't get swept away by emotion, but instead knows how to navigate it. Someone who brings reassurance instead of confusion, structure instead of chaos, and perspective instead of pressure. Philosophically, emotional stability is a form of discipline. It's a man mastering the battlefield of his mind, and mastery is attractive. Women are drawn to men who have walked through the fire and emerged with clarity. There is something undeniably alluring about a man who knows how to regulate his emotions, articulate his feelings, and stay grounded even when life becomes difficult. It creates a relationship dynamic where a younger woman feels she can grow, evolve, and express her own emotions without fear of being misunderstood. In many ways, emotional stability isn't just an attractive quality. It's a healing one. It creates emotional safety, and emotional safety is what allows relationships to deepen. Younger women feel they can trust an older man with their vulnerability because he doesn't weaponize emotions. He understands them. He doesn't react impulsively. He responds intelligently. He doesn't treat emotions as threats. He treats them as invitations to connect. And this, ultimately, is why emotional stability becomes such a powerful magnet. It's not about age, it's about mastery, it's not about years, it's about growth. Younger women don't choose older men because of the number of birthdays they've celebrated, but because of the emotional evolution those years have shaped within them. A man who has mastered his emotions becomes a man who can master his relationships, and a man who can master his relationships becomes unforgettable. At the end of the day, the greatest attraction isn't age, it's peace. And peace is the one thing only an emotionally mature man can truly give. When you really pay attention to the silent dynamics of attraction, you begin to notice something profound. Younger women are drawn to men who have direction. Not just ambition, not just dreams, not just big talk, but real direction. A man who knows where he's going creates a gravitational pull without even trying. And older men, through the journey of life, naturally develop that sense of purpose that younger men often haven't yet discovered. Purpose isn't loud. It doesn't announce itself or try to impress anybody. It's something you feel more than you hear. When an older man speaks, there's a certain intentionality behind his words. When he moves, there's a rhythm, a discipline, and a sense of knowing that younger women find incredibly compelling. Younger men often get caught up in trying to be noticed. Older men, on the other hand, have already lived through the phase where looking impressive mattered more than being authentic. That phase is behind them. Younger women feel that difference immediately. They can sense when a man is rooted in something deeper than the moment. Direction is attractive because it symbolizes stability, vision, and leadership. It tells a woman that this man isn't just drifting through life. He's building something, whether it's a career, a business, a legacy, or simply a better version of himself. And women naturally gravitate toward that kind of emotional architecture. There's also a philosophical dimension to purpose that younger women appreciate, even if they don't always articulate it. A man with purpose lives life with intention. He wakes up with clarity. He makes decisions with confidence. He knows what matters to him and what doesn't. This level of inner alignment creates a masculine energy that is both grounding and inspiring. Younger women connect with it because it creates emotional safety, the kind of safety that says, I know where I'm going, and I won't be lost halfway through our journey. Older men also tend to handle setbacks differently, and this adds to their appeal. They've experienced failure, disappointment, and unexpected turns in life, and instead of breaking them, those experiences have made them sharper. They've learned how to pivot, how to rebuild, and how to push forward without losing themselves in the process. Younger women admire this resilience because it reflects emotional maturity and mental strength potential, relation that adds to long-term potential. A man with direction doesn't just walk, he leads. And leadership, in the emotional sense, isn't about control. It's about guidance. It's about having the ability to create structure in chaos, clarity in confusion, and calmness in difficult situations. Younger women often crave this kind of leadership, not because they want someone to make decisions for them, but because they want a partner who knows how to move with purpose. A partner who can match their energy with intention, not inconsistency. This doesn't mean older men are perfect or superior. It simply means they've lived long enough to understand the value of discipline, focus, and self-mastery. And those qualities naturally translate into leadership energy. When an older man sets goals, he follows through. When he makes a promise, he keeps it. When he plans for the future, he commits to it. Younger women interpret these behaviors as signs of reliability, emotional intelligence, and personal integrity. And then there's the psychological aspect of attraction. Women by nature are wired to seek emotional and relational security. A man with direction provides a sense of predictability. He's consistent, he's intentional, and he stands firm in his identity. Younger men, still figuring themselves out, often struggle with emotional turbulence, impulsiveness, and identity shifts. The older men have already gone through that inner battle. They've built themselves on stronger foundations, and that foundation becomes a powerful masculine signal. Purpose also fosters confidence. Real confidence, not the kind performed in public, but the kind that lives quietly within a man. Confidence rooted in direction makes a man decisive. It makes him less reactive, more composed, and more forward, focused. Younger women appreciate this because it creates a relational environment where they don't have to question where things are headed. They feel guided, not pressured, supported, not overshadowed. And let's be honest, direction is attractive because it's rare. We live in a world filled with distractions, contradictions, and constant noise. A man who maintains focus despite all of that stands out. He becomes a symbol of clarity in a world full of confusion. He becomes someone a younger woman feels she can rely on emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. Not because he controls her path, but because he is sure of his own. The deeper truth behind this attraction is simple. A man with purpose becomes a man with presence. His energy fills the room without him trying. His mindset influences others without him forcing it. His life becomes an example instead of a performance. And that quiet, steady leadership is something younger women respect on a deep, instinctive level. Purpose is not about being perfect. It's about being clear. And clarity is one of the most powerful forms of masculine presence. In the end, a man with direction doesn't chase attention. He commands respect. And respect is the foundation of every meaningful connection a woman will ever trust. When you really observe the emotional patterns between younger women and older men, you begin to realize something most people overlook. Younger women aren't just attracted to maturity. They're attracted to emotional intelligence. And emotional intelligence is not something you develop overnight. It's forged through experience, self-reflection, heartbreak, mistakes, and the humility to learn from all of it. Older men have lived long enough to understand emotions beyond the surface level, and that level of self-awareness creates a younger women feel immediately. Younger women often say that older men get them without needing long explanations, and that's because emotional intelligence teaches a man how to listen, not just to words, but to tone, to pauses, to body language, to the subtle shifts in energy. These men don't make everything about themselves. They don't turn disagreements into battles. They don't panic when a woman expresses strong emotions. Instead, they approach communication with clarity and patience. They understand that emotions are not threats. They are signals. They are invitations to understand each other more deeply. This ability to navigate emotional terrain is something younger women find irresistibly comforting. It creates a space where they feel safe opening up, safe expressing vulnerability, and safe being imperfect. With emotionally inexperienced men, emotions often trigger insecurity. A woman cries and he shuts down. A woman is upset and he becomes defensive. A woman needs reassurance and he labels her too emotional. But an older man has seen enough life to understand that emotions are part of connection. They don't scare him. They don't confuse him. They don't overwhelm him. Instead, they draw out his empathy. Psychologically, emotional intelligence signals something deeper: self-mastery. A man who knows how to regulate his emotions also knows how to regulate his impulses, his decisions, and his reactions. He doesn't lash out when he's stressed. He doesn't withdraw when he's hurt. He doesn't jump to conclusions out of fear or insecurity. And younger women interpret that emotional steadiness as strength, the kind of strength that gives them the freedom to express themselves without walking on eggshells. There's also an interesting dynamic that happens in communication with older men. They understand timing. They know when to talk and when to stay silent. They know when to offer advice and when to simply listen. They know that not every problem needs a quick solution. Sometimes a woman just needs presence. This sensitivity doesn't come from age alone. It comes from emotional maturity. And younger women appreciate this balance because it makes them feel valued instead of dismissed. Philosophically, emotional intelligence reflects a man's relationship with himself. It shows that he has confronted his own emotional shadows and grown from them. Younger women pick up on this inner maturity. They sense when a man has healed, when he has learned from past relationships, and when he has cultivated empathy through experience. This creates a relational environment free from emotional chaos, insecurity, and unnecessary drama. With emotionally intelligent men, conversations don't spiral, they resolve. Conflicts don't escalate, they clarify. And this ability to create emotional harmony becomes one of the strongest foundations of attraction. Older men also tend to express themselves differently. They're more direct, clearer with their intentions, and more grounded in the way they communicate affection. They don't rely on games. They don't manipulate emotions. And they don't create uncertainty to appear mysterious or desirable. Instead, they prioritize transparency. When they care, they express it. When they're unsure, they ask. When they disagree, they communicate respectfully. This level of emotional honesty is deeply refreshing for younger women who are used to men their age being inconsistent, evasive, or emotionally unavailable. Another important layer to emotional intelligence is empathy. The ability to understand someone else's emotional world without judgment. Older men empathize not because they want something in return, but because they've learned that relationships thrive on understanding. This makes younger women feel emotionally held, supported, and appreciated. It's why many younger women say older men feel more emotionally present. They're not distracted by proving themselves, competing with others, or chasing validation. They are attentive. They are aware. They are intentional. Emotionally intelligent men also create deeper conversations. They engage on intellectual and emotional levels simultaneously, making younger women feel mentally stimulated and emotionally understood. This type of connection is rare, and younger women recognize its value instantly. It's not about age, it's about presence, awareness, and emotional depth. And perhaps the most profound aspect of emotional intelligence is the way it shapes the relationship dynamic. When a man understands female emotions, he doesn't just react. He connects. He doesn't fight her feelings. He supports them. He doesn't tell her to calm down. He offers calmness through his presence. This emotional balance becomes the anchor younger women lean into because it allows them to express their femininity fully and freely. Emotional intelligence isn't about knowing everything. It's about understanding enough to respond with wisdom, not fear. It's about emotional leadership, quiet strength, and a kind of inner maturity that creates emotional safety in every interaction. In the end, the deepest attraction isn't to an older man. It's to a man's with the understand of wisdom, what only growth wisdom that only growth can teach. And that wisdom is what turns connection into something unforgettable.